Welcome back to the Wingspan Podcast, Episode 8. I'm Doug Barrick, joined by my co-host Chris Mulholland of Nets Daily and our special guest. Our guest is senior NBA writer for the New York Daily News.
We welcome Kristian Winfield to the pod. Kristian, thank you for taking some time out of your day to join Doug and I. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me. Doug, I always see you.
I was clearly hounding you to get on here, man.
You guys are impossible to kind of ignore. Like, you guys are right there, always wreaking havoc. So it's good.
For sure. We're gaining the block.
Facts. Yeah, you guys hold it down. I don't know if there would be any Nets pride if it wasn't for y'all. So
appreciate that, man. Strength in numbers.
Facts.
So, man, let's kick it off. So when did you want to pursue a career in sports?
Oh, man. I kind of came to the decision pretty early that I wasn't going to the NBA or the NFL. No, it's serious. Like, at a certain point, when you grow up in certain communities and you see everybody around you is trying to pursue basketball or trying to pursue football, you kind of got to know yourself. And I was just some like chubby fat kid in high school, running around and realized, I could shoot a little bit, but I came to the realization pretty early. All right, I'm not going to make money by playing basketball. I'm not going to the NFL. I'm not going to play any pro sports, but I was always a really strong writer. And I knew for a fact that I wanted to be around basketball basically my entire life.
That's awesome.
So I would say maybe senior year in high school, there was a little journalism club that my school had, but it wasn't really like a real thing. There weren't that many people going. I went to it was hosted in my high school library. I went to Benjamin Banneker right there on Clinton Park. And, I went to the library to a journalism meeting. There was nobody there. It was just the lady. She was just kind of like twiddling her thumbs there, hanging out. And I just picked her brain a little bit. And she was like, oh, if you want, you could start a little newspaper here. And, I kind of played around with the idea, and it never really got off. Anyway, I never really ended up having a high school newspaper, but that was kind of where the seed was planted. It's like, okay, well, if I can write, which is one of my gifts that I just happen to be blessed with, and I can write about basketball, and doing so will give me access to be around all types of people and to tell all types of dope stories. Why not make a living out of it? So I took that. I went to college. I went to Hampton University down in Virginia, and I kind of started there. Freshman year, I was just a sports writer, general sports writer on the newspaper. I was also doing like sports stuff for our TV station, and then I kind of slowly rose up the newspaper ranks. I was never really the type of guy that wanted to be on camera all the time. But I was always a strong writer. So I went from sports writer. Second year, I was a sports writer. Junior year, I was a sports editor. And then senior year, I was the editor-in-chief for the whole damn newspaper, And along the way, I did the internships. Freshman year, I interned with Bleacher Report. This was before Turner bought them out. So I interned with them freshman year. Sophomore year, did I have an internship sophomore year? No. Sophomore year, I was supposed to have an internship, but I ended up going back home and working at what was that, like a daycare in the hood. That was a completely crazy experience. That's a story for another day. Junior year, I came back. I got the internship with NBC Sports out in Stamford. That was really dope just because like having that on my resume was kind of like validation. It's like, all right, well, if I can get an internship at NBC Sports, anybody can hire me, And then senior year post-grad, I ended up getting an internship in DC at this spot called the Center for Public Integrity. It had nothing to do with sports whatsoever. I was talking to people in a small town in East Liverpool, Ohio, about a hazardous waste incinerator that was placed in a black community. It was terrible. But while I was doing that job, there was a job opening popped up on Indeed, of all places. And it was about.com. They were having they decided that for 2 years they were going to launch a sports section. And in year 2, they were doing NBA stuff and they needed a Knicks beat writer. And I applied. I over-applied. I sent all my clips. I sent all types of crazy information that they didn't even ask for. And that was kind of my end. I got that job. Shout out to Connor Hughes, who is now the beat reporter at The Athletic covering the Jets. That was my editor. That was the guy who co-hired me and kind of gave me that part. And from there, I treated that little about.com job like I was the Knicks beat reporter for the New York Daily News, and just from there, I kind of blew up from there, people started to recognize me for the work I was doing. From there, about.com shut down, but at that point, I started to freelance. That's when I started with Elite Sports New York. And then I took that and continued to do it the same way I was doing the about.com job. And a year later, SB Nation came along. They hired me out. They gave me my first full-time sports writing gig. I was there for 3 seasons. Wow, I spent 3 full seasons at SB Nation. Yeah, I was at SB Nation for 3 seasons, and then Kyle Wagner at the New York Daily News gave me a call. He hired me there, and here I am. Now I'm the well, it's kind of crazy how it all works out that way. Now I'm the senior NBA writer / I'm really the Nets beat writer. You know, they gave me the title of senior NBA journalist, but really I'm covering the Nets, which just happened to be the most winning team in New York City right now. So that's what I'm at right now, and obviously I write a little bit of everything. I write about NBA stuff. So, for example, when Devontae Graham came here and lit it up, I wrote about him. When different other teams come in town, I write about them if they've got something going on. But I'm the Nets beat writer, man, and the high school kid in me is very happy because this is kind of what he wanted for himself, you know. So that's kind of the short version of how I got here, and when I realized I wanted to do this.
That's awesome, man. And what you mentioned before of like knowing early on that playing sports versus continuing a career in sports, you had a very similar background to some of the previous guys we've interviewed. And so I thought it was a very humbling time of your life, I guess, to know where your strengths truly lied. So when you played, was it more of intramural or was it more of playing on the team at school kind of thing? So
that's a funny question, because part of the decision-making process for me in high school was, okay, does this school have a football? Because I thought I was going to end up playing football, right? I love football. I was a little stockier, you know what I'm saying? I was always a heavy kid, so I knew I wasn't going to be able to chase around these scrawny little kids on a basketball court who have crazy handles. I was going to embarrass myself. But football, you know, I was always, you know what I'm saying, okay, I can play on the D-line, I could play fullback, I could play tight end, you know what I'm saying, you can put me all over the place. The high school I ended up going to didn't have a football team, so I ended up playing in a couple of these neighborhood leagues, and I was like, okay, well, let's give this a try. And I'll never forget it. I was we had a little practice. I played for a little team here in Bed-Stuy. We had a little practice. They gave us our pads, and we were in practice, and they put me at, like, I guess, outside linebacker, and we had this one kid, I forget his name, I think his name was Terry or Terrence or something like that. He was big, he was older than a lot of us, big, he's probably like 6-something, fast, and he just runs full speed right at me and knocks me over, right? Oh. And at that point, and it's in the middle of a play, but at that point I was like, all right, this football thing might not be for me. And then we ended up playing in the season, and I wasn't a superstar of any. I was barely getting any burn. You know what I'm saying? I was a regular ass kid, and I got leveled. I was on the D line, and I got pancaked by no lineman. And at that point, I was like, all right, this isn't it for me, guys. Like, it's over. And then the day after that, my back was hurting. I was like, all right, I'm too young to be having back pain. I just got embarrassed by an offensive lineman this year. I don't even get burned. What am I doing this for? And I kind of just had that moment, and I was like, you know what? Nah, it's over. And then,
so you were load management before load management.
Yeah, I was OD load management. It was over for me. And then, but the high school I did go to, Banneker, we were known for basketball. You know what I'm saying? Like, we were always, year after year, we were going, maybe not championship games, but we were in the picture. We were trying to get to the championship games every day. My freshman year at Banneker, I got to watch Lance Stevenson cook a couple of my friends that are playing on the varsity team freshman year. It was crazy. He was out of control. But my school, because my school was so big and heavy into basketball, I just happened to be around all the time. I was cool with a lot of the basketball players. I was just hanging around. I would play ball with them. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just made sense, you know? So just being around that, you know, it just kind of was like, yo, I don't want to be around anything else, really. I want to be around basketball for as long as I can. And that happened in college. I went to Hampton, started getting cool with the basketball players there. And I was like, yeah, I could try to work on the basketball team if I wanted to. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's always, you can go have a conversation with some of the staffers on the college team, and you get a little gig in like that with the actual team. I was like, nah, you know what I'm saying? Like, I want to take this writing thing and do it to a different level. So I kind of just like went the newspaper route, and it ended up working for me.
But we're glad you're here, man.
Yeah, we're glad, man. We're glad. And then, Kristian, one of the connections that me and you both have is obviously from Lead Sports when we started in the very beginning, and then SB Nation with my part, Nets Daily, and yours. Right. You just talk a little bit about Lead Sports New York, what you learned out of there, and kind of same thing with SB Nation. Kind of what were your takeaways during your time there?
Well, when I went to Elite Sports New York, it was really like, I don't want to say it was. No, I mean, it was a growing website. It was like a pretty fresh website. And I don't really want to, like, I guess, toot my own horn, but I was kind of like a big pickup for those guys. They were really happy to have me on. I was really happy to have them because after About.com, I didn't necessarily know where I was going. I didn't have any offers on the table. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have any idea of what I was going to do. But credit to Robbie. You know, I think I tweeted out that I didn't have an opportunity anywhere and that I was going to just try to figure it out. And he was like, hey, man, you're more than welcome to just come right for us. You know, we don't really have very much to offer you in terms of compensation, but like you can come file your stuff. And they were able to continue. They gave me a platform to continue to get credentialed and go cover these games, which is the biggest thing for me. I knew I just wanted to be in the building because my work would speak for itself. And I'm still forever grateful to Robbie for giving me that opportunity, just because, like, if it wasn't for him, I mean, I'm sure I would have figured out another way to continue writing. But a lot of guys, once you lose that first job, it's tough to get back on your feet. And every time, like, I've been able to just like bounce back, and Robbie gave my opportunity just to continue writing and be in the building and just continue being me. And that helped me grow my platform kind of while I was in a transition phase, you know. And then SB Nation came along, which was the reason I left Elite Sports New York. And that was a dope process just because that was my first time really working collaboratively with editors. You know, before that, the only editing I had gotten was at the school newspaper, and at the school newspaper, everybody's got their own things going on, so they don't really have time to really kind of focus in and give you the feedback that you need. But SB Nation helped me in two different ways. One, tighten up my writing, even though my writing, like, no matter who you talk to, whether it's high school, college, SB Nation, even here at the Daily News, the one, I guess, consistent feedback that I've gotten at every step of the way is that I'm a clean writer, right? Like, I know how to string words together. English is easy for me. But at SB Nation, you know, I learned what it means to have your voice and how to kind of like put that on a platform. So it's kind of like, in a way, SB Nation helped me find like who I am as a person, because if you find your voice, that's kind of like honing in on what makes you you and what makes you different. And I was able to find that at SB Nation, and then just having the real-time feedback from different editors who've been in the game for so long. Mike Prada, amazing. If it wasn't for him, he definitely had influence on the type of writer I am now. Chris Greenberg was amazing. All the different editors there. They just did Elena Bergeron, just seeing her, not only just seeing a woman, but a Black woman in charge of a sports media website. She was editor-in-chief for God knows how long. Just seeing that possible for her, knowing that it's possible for other people who look like her was dope. SB Nation was amazing for so many different ways. And then they put me on a platform to where my work be read by millions of people. You know, I didn't know, you know, when I was little, I knew that I wanted to be here, but I didn't know what the different points of gratification would be along the way. And having my work read by so many people and shared around by so many people at SB Nation was dope.
Exactly. I feel that, man, because that's the biggest thing. And especially in this field, a lot of people realize that the two biggest things are obviously your mentors and the connections that you make across the whole line. So can you just talk a little about like some of your mentors, who are some of your mentors, and kind of the importance of connections in this field?
I'd say connection. You know, mentors for me. You know, my mother was never really in this field. You know, I never really had someone whose footsteps I was following. You know, my mother was a designer. My pops worked in computers. My step pops at the time was in music. My brother, he works at the hospital for special surgery, which is funny. It's a small world now because I'm at that facility every other day. So I never. But to your point, I never really had that person who was doing this in my field that I kind of like picked their brain on and was able to just like, you know, give me that guidance along the way. So that's why, to your point, the connections were even more important, because when you don't have somebody who is doing their best to open those doors for you and who's trying to guide you through the waters because they know what types of landmines you're going to step on, you've got to be tight, and you've got to really try to meet as many people as you can. It made me not even a mentor, but my first day on the job, while I was at About.com covering the Knicks, first thing I did was reach out to Ian Begley, right? Because I knew, A, he'd been doing this for a while, and I knew, B, I was a fan of the way he worked, and I told him that, and he was just like, hey, man, first thing he ever said, we were in a press conference, and I forget who the coach was at the time. I want to say it may have been Derek Fisher. Was it Derek Fisher? Was that the coach? 2015 was it 2015 Knicks coach by Derek Fisher?
I think it was.
It may have been Derek Fisher. I asked a question. I don't even remember what the question is. Ian Begley comes over to me. He goes, "Hey man, that was a great question." No, the first day I was there, The first press conference I was at, I was kind of like too nervous to ask a question, right? And Ian Bailey comes over and we were just chatting. He goes, "Hey man, why didn't you ask a question?" I was like, "Man, I didn't really know what to ask. I was a little nervous." He goes, "Yeah, man, you gotta just get yourself in there and go." Second game I go to, I ask a question. He goes, "Hey man, that was a really good question. Don't stop asking questions. That's what you do." And from there on, I kind of just like knew he kind of put that spark in my back. I was like, all right, well, I'm a good question asker, and now that's something that has followed me every step of the way. Everywhere I got 10 minutes with Kenny Atkinson alone at Summer League a couple of years ago. We were just chatting. At the end of it, he goes, "Hey man, you asked some really good questions, good stuff." And I was like, "Hey man, thank you." So Ian, credit to him for putting that spark in my back on day one. Other mentors, I mean, I had a couple in college who were kind of like telling me, "Okay, you need to do this, that, and that," but I wasn't really exposed to anyone who had done it, and I'm a guy who's like, yeah, if you didn't do it, if you didn't do what I'm trying to do, you can't really tell me anything, and that might not be the best way to go about it, but that's the way I process things. It's like, okay, if you want to get into real estate, are you going to take advice from someone in car sales? Probably not. Right. And that's the way I've kind of tried to go about it. So for me, I haven't really had too many mentors because I hadn't been exposed to too many people. Maybe one, and man, he'd probably be mad at me for not even thinking of him. Bob Butler. When I was in high school, he took me on a tour of CBS in the city. There's a CBS building in the city that he took me on a tour of, and he was just walking me through. He had a pass that got him into every different room, and I actually haven't even thanked him for that, but he just showed me that it's possible, getting into these buildings and getting into these different rooms. It's possible if you just like put the work in. And there've been different people along the way who've showed me, like all you have to do is work hard and good things will happen and stick around. But experience for me has been the best teacher. I've learned more on the job than I learned in any college classroom. I learned more in any internship that I learned in any college classroom. And connections have been important. Obviously, I can't name all the connections I've made because that would be putting myself in a pretty awkward predicament. But I've met so many people along the way that have put me in a good place, and a lot of different people that I'm thankful for being where I'm at right now.
That's awesome, man. So what kind of advice would you give to other writers that were in your position, knowing what you know now? I mean, yeah, you're still a young writer, but with the business, it's ever evolving. So
for sure. What type of advice would I have? Number one, you've got to bet on yourself. And number two, you can't give up. I remember, and there only a couple people really know this, but about a year ago, while I was at SB Nation towards the middle end of last year, I wanted to quit. Like obviously SB Nation is going through a lot of different things, and obviously they've got their business practices that they're frowned upon, but obviously they've underpaid their writers for a very long time, and I just felt like I was so spread thin. I was doing so much work, and I wasn't getting the financial compensation for as much work as I was doing, and I just felt like over it. I was like, you know what? I'm pretty sure I can curse on this podcast. I was just like, yo, fuck this. I'm going to quit and cook.
You are the first, man. You are the first.
Wow, damn. Well, I'll take that. I was just like, yo, man, fuck this. I'm going to quit and cook, right? And I'm going to make some money that way, and I'll write on the side, right? That was my plan at the time. I was like, yeah, I'm going to quit. I'm going to cook, right? I'm going to get my side business. I'm going to turn that into a main business, and I'm going to do sports writing on the side. I'm going to flip it, right? Because I was like, all right, at this point on the side, I can probably freelance and make a couple $100, maybe make $1,000 a month writing on the side. Then maybe I can have my food business bringing in, who knows, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month. Then boom, now I'm on top. And that was really that was going through my mind. And then I had a call with a couple different people. One is John Ketchum, who used to work at SB Nation, then took a job elsewhere, and now he's kind of bouncing around. He was just like, hey, man, no, don't do that. That's not a good idea. Just stick it out. Just keep your head up. Something will happen for you. And it kind of takes me back to Nipsey Hussle has this song. I think it was a song that he didn't complete. And one of the things he said on there was, I've been through every emotion, but I didn't quit. I stuck with it. And now I'm kind of like reaping the benefits of that. And a lot of the success I've had so quickly has just been a byproduct of A, being at the right place at the right time, B, putting my talent next to my passion, which is my talent is writing, my passion is basketball. I put those two together. If you combine your talent and your passion, you really can't fail. And then number three, it was just not quitting. You know what I'm saying? It was just sticking around the entire time. There were a couple different times I could have quit after About.com. After About.com went sideways. While I was at Elite Sports New York, making what? How much money were we making per story? Like $5, $7 most, $4, depending on the story. Could have quit then. SB Nation came along. I spent 3 years at SB Nation. I probably wanted to quit after 1.5, right? But I was like, you know what? I'm going to stick it out. And now I'm at the New York Daily News, and I'm telling you now, I do not want to quit. I'm motivated to work even harder because I know there's different levels that I could achieve. So I can't tell any new writers what way to go now, because when I was out, the way was like it was just you go to school, do the internships. And I guess what I can say is I worked backwards, right? Because I knew what I wanted to do from a young age. When I was a junior, I was like, okay, well, if I want to be the voice of New York City basketball when I get back, I need to do these internships. I need to be this in the school newspaper. I need to have this when I graduate. I need to not settle for, like, I knew two things. I didn't want to cover high school sports, and I didn't want to be in a small city in Ohio, right? Those are the two things. I didn't want to be writing about high school, and I didn't want to be writing in a random town that wasn't in a big market. And I kind of struck gold. Obviously, I got lucky because I'm from here, so I was able to just kind of come back and figure it out. But the sooner you know what it is that you want to do, the better. That's not to say rush. I was just talking to somebody else not so long ago whose brother wanted to get into this, and that was what I was saying. I was saying, hey, the sooner they know what it is that they want to write about, the better. And yeah, sometimes you gotta just like go out on a limb and bet on yourself. If it comes down to it, start a blog. A lot of these guys, a lot of writers are blowing up on Twitter. And they're blowing up on Twitter because they have something to offer that's different from a lot of people. One guy that I really like out there is Nikias. Nikias Duncan is doing a great job, and he kind of just like made it on his own. He kind of just like cultivated his own audience. He's really smart. He found his niche, which is like X's and O's, but he communicates it in a way that makes the average person able to understand it, which is dope. I'm a big fan of what he's got going on for himself. But you got to just like kind of know what it is that you want to do and chase after it and know that you're going to get it. And biggest thing I can say is never quit, because if I would have quit when I wanted to last year, I wouldn't have this job right now.
Exactly, man. I like your vision, because that's a lot of people don't realize that when you're covering the sports. Obviously, at a young age, you probably relate to this. All your friends are like, "Wow, man, you're covering a team. Like, you're talking to athletes, and you probably make a lot of money." Same thing if you get seen on TV for like a quick second. Oh, you probably make a lot of money, but people don't realize that this is one of those fields you got to really grind for if you really want to make it, and you got to put in your dues. So, and obviously, you're one of those guys that have experience in the online sports media site industry and the paper and the New York Daily News. So can you just talk a little about the difference between the two, kind of working for an online sports media site to work for a newspaper that also is online as well, but such as the Daily News?
Yeah. The biggest change for me has been deadlines. When you're online, you can kind of file something at any time. Or when your work isn't tethered to a physical thing that's getting sent out and read by God knows how many people, you can kind of like, okay, I can work at SB Nation. I was my creative juices wouldn't really start flowing until like 10, 11 at night. So I would be pushing throughout the day, and then 10 o'clock, I get a creative shock, and boom, I'm writing for 4 hours, and then boom, I'm filing something to my editor at 8 a.m. And he's like, whoa, when did you write this? Like overnight, right? But here, you can't do that, right? I have deadlines. I've got a 9 o'clock deadline. I've got a 9:30 deadline. They want me to have an early in at 7 o'clock. Then I've got to have a gamer ready as soon as I've got to have basically, as it's called, a running. I've got to have a game story ready as soon as or very shortly after the last buzzer, which I mean, that's really not realistic, but I try to get it done as quickly to the buzzer as you can. And then we've got other deadlines. I've got to have a side piece done. I've got to turn my I've got to turn my running into like a full gamer about what the story was that day. And I'd say that's the only real difference. And obviously, seeing your work, I mean, it's not the same feeling. I'm lying. It still is the same feeling walking into a grocery store. I went last night. I got hungry at around 1 a.m. I went to a store around the corner, and there was a Daily News. And while I'm paying for my food, I grab it, and boom, there's my story about, hey, look, Kyrie could be coming back in a week and a half or so, however long it's going to take if he actually comes back or not. And it's like, wow. For me to be able to see my work in print, and then B, having walked past other people who are reading my stories, it's really no other feeling like that. The other thing is, obviously all these newspapers are trying to get into the online game now. So even us at the Daily News, we're counting page views, right? We're trying to see, okay, what stories are hitting, what times are hitting. So it's not really that much of a difference outside of the actual print aspect of it, but working in a print field that showed me, hey man, these guys have it tough. Even working next to Brian Lewis, who does it at the Post, that guy works hard, and he has different deadlines than I do. It's an incredible experience. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. Just having my work actually in, like, this is the paper. My pops gets the Daily News delivered. He's been getting the Daily News delivered to his crib, I think, every day for the last God knows how many years. And now for him to open, like, he texts me every day, and he's as big of a Knicks fan as you're gonna find. So he's texting me every day, talking shit about my Nets story. But like, he loves it. You know, he loves the
yeah,
feeling.
We've seen those screenshots.
Yeah, he loves the feeling of seeing his son in the story in the newspaper that he gets delivered every day. Yeah, that's the biggest difference. It's having that gratification versus, you know, when I was at SB Nation, my stories, the gratification for me came from people sharing my stories online, right? Now I can see that in real time. Now I get emails from different people saying, "Hey, I read your story on the paper," and some people are talking shit. Not everybody's going to disagree with you. Not everybody's going to agree with you. Some people calling me an idiot. Some people saying, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about." Da, da, da. So the hate mail is a cool thing, but it's just fun being in this position where I'm the guy that people go to at the Daily News for Nets news. You know, like it's really it's. I don't even know what word I would use to describe it. It's almost surreal. It's like, damn, am I really this person? And there's a couple of people that are walking around going, "Hey, man, you're the senior writer at the Daily News. You're kind of a celebrity." I'm like, "No, I'm not no damn celebrity." And then they're like, you kind of are.
Oh, come on,
no,
man.
So I'm a regular person, man. And but yeah, no, I might have gone off on a tangent. Though that's I guess kind of the differences between working for a print.
You honestly set it up perfect for the next bit.
Yeah, you set it up perfect. Because first off, before we begin, that was a great insight. Obviously, you talked a lot about your roles at Daily News, and I bet a lot of listeners would appreciate that. But let's just talk a little about the emotions of when you first got your first printed article for the Daily News. And obviously, you talked about your dad reading that paper growing up and kind of the emotional bond to it. But can you just talk about like the emotions that you had when you picked up the Daily News and you kind of just saw your article in there with the name on it?
I kind of wanted to cry, you know, and I don't know if I actually shed a tear, but if I didn't, they were on the brink of coming out. Just seeing that, you know, and I remember my very first story was about obviously Kyrie had gone to the Nets. It was trying to figure out ways to make that roster fit, right? What other ways they're going to try to round the roster out? How are they going to make this work? What does this mean for Karras and Spencer Dinwiddie? You know, different things like that. That was the first thing I wrote. And it was a full page spread, right? I had the two pages, and it was a big photo, and then my name was right there, Kristian Winfield, New York Daily News, and I still have that. I got a couple of those. I was just cleaning out my closet the other day. I have a couple of those issues right there. I'm never gonna lose them. You know, those are that, man. How would I even describe that? It was kind of just like seeing all the work that I've put in and all the different emotions, all the ideas of doubt in this field, because it's easy to kind of see a lot of other people are struggling in this field, you know, and it's not for anything that they're doing wrong. It's just things that are outside of their control. You know, I could have easily not gotten the SB Nation job and still been freelancing this entire time, but I did. Mike Prada and Elena and all those other people took a chance on me, and I'll never forgive them. I'll never forget them for that. I always love them for that. But all the different emotions that I've had, sometimes wanting to quit, thinking that my work wasn't worth whatever. Because when you get underpaid for work you're doing, you automatically start to question the worth of your work, you know, which was a great thing for me, getting this new Daily News job and getting the pay raise that came with it. It was like, all right, well, obviously someone values my work at the same level that I do. So now let's get it going. And then to see that worth not only come in the form of a paycheck, but to see it in an actual physical copy of the paper that you grew up reading and that your pop still gets delivered to his crib every day. There's no feeling like it, man. Even still now, I've had the job since July. It's 2020 now, and I'm still geeking out when I see my name in the paper. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like,
how could you not?
And then I was able to bring somebody with me. I was able to bring my boy Charles McDonald from SB Nation. He's the NFL writer. So now we go hang out, and you know, he comes over to my crib for a football game. We're hanging out. We go to the store real quick, grab a Daily News, and we both have stories in the paper. Are you kidding me? Two black kids randomly having stories of the Daily News, one football, one basketball. It's like, what? You've got to be shitting me. And no, we're not shitting you. This is real life. And that's kind of what it feels like. It feels like, are you shitting me? And it's not. It's real life. So it's kind of surreal, man. Sometimes I can't even put a word on it. But it also, I won't even lie to you. It sharpens me, because I know my work is not only going to be read by online audiences, but I know it's going to be read by older people. I know it's going to be read by a bunch of different people who only consume their news in print media, right? So I've got to make sure that and obviously I always try to keep myself tight. I always try to make sure I'm accurate, but because I know I'm getting read by people who basically only read newspapers and they're going to try to pick my stuff apart every little which way they can, it sharpens me, man. I can't be putting out any bullshit on that paper, man. And that's not to say I would have been putting bullshit out on SB Nation or any other pro or Elite Sports New York or about.com. It's just like, hey man, this is the big leagues now. You know, I can't be fucking up, and I don't. So yeah.
But man, that's great, man. I'm glad to see all the success, man, because I remember reading you back at Elite Sports when you were there, then I joined shortly after, but see where you came today. It's great to see, man. We'll just trace back a little bit. I know you hinted at it a little earlier, but when did you begin watching the NBA, and what was kind of your first memory of the NBA and kind of your favorite team growing up? Obviously, the Brooklyn Nets when you were growing up, they were New Jersey by me. But can you just talk a little bit about kind of those memories the first time that you kind of started to realize the NBA and kind of growing up and everything along those lines?
My first memory, I remember it vividly, but not vividly, right? Like I remember exactly what was happening. Michael Jordan was playing. I don't remember who it was against. It may have been the Pacers. I'm not sure exactly who he was playing. Every time he scored, my Aunt Cece was at the house talking to my mom. Every time he scored, I'd run from the TV, run back to Aunt Cece. Michael Jordan scored again. Ran back and forth. I just kept doing that, and I did it so many times. Obviously Michael Jordan was going to continue scoring. I did that the entire game until I got tired. That's my very first basketball memory. I used to.
You must got tired fast because he's a big scorer.
Yeah, I was running back. Yeah, man, he's probably going for 40 or so that game. I was going back and forth. God knows how many times. I used to be in school classrooms writing down different rosters. You know, for me, I was big on video games. Right, I was playing 2K. God knows all the time. In maybe. What was that, pre-K to 8th grade, maybe towards 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade when I started really getting in the system. I used to try to like create my own, you know, you can do your own franchise. Well, I mean, I don't even know if they had franchise mode back then. They had season mode. Yeah, so I would be trying to put together these different championship teams, and I would take that to school with me. So I'm writing down different rosters. Like, damn, how am I going to make this work? How am I going to trade one of my guys for somebody else? And I'm doing all this in the classroom. So I was huge. I was huge in video games. Video games kind of like took me into journalism almost, because that kept me glued to the NBA. I always found a way to be tethered to the NBA, whether it was on TV, whether it was video games, whether now it's covering games. I always found a way to be around them. Growing up, I was absolutely a Knicks fan. They were the team in New York. I wasn't a Nets fan growing up, even though I did go to a couple of different games in New Jersey. The Knicks were always there. I loved them at the time. Obviously, just going through that whole period. Dang, how long ago was Lynn Sandy? Now that I think about it, that was a minute ago. Man, but yeah, just that whole era. Also, I saw, and then, but once the Nets moved to Brooklyn, I became a Nets fan. At the same time, I was a Trailblazers fan. That was probably the non-New York team that I was the biggest fan. I was definitely a fan of. Don't get me wrong, I loved Kobe. I was the biggest Kobe fan you'd find back then. But in terms of actually supporting a team, I love the Trailblazers, especially this was during the Brandon Roy, LaMarcus Aldridge, Greg Oden era, back when they went and traded for Gerald Wallace and they had Jamal Crawford and they had that entire team with all that talent and they didn't do anything with it. And then the injuries hit them and it was over. That was the team I was a big fan of. And then I was covering the Nets while I was writing for Bleacher Report back then. So those were the two teams that I was a fan of. And then obviously I've been a Jets fan all my life and a Colts fan before. I was a huge Colts fan during the Peyton Manning era. That was my team. The Colts and the Seahawks were my two teams because the Jets were never really that good. So I had to find someone to root for.
Still really aren't.
Yeah, it's tough now. But now it's like, all right, well, I'm going to die on this ship, so I might as well get comfortable. Right.
Yeah.
So
I'll see you at the bottom of the ocean, man.
Yeah, right. Hopefully we get a couple life vests, but it's not looking too good for us, but we'll see. But
we'll find Jack at the bottom.
Yeah, to answer your question, first NBA and first basketball memory was running back and forth with when Michael Jordan was on TV. My pops took me to a couple basketball games. And then obviously I played a little bit of basketball, went from pre-K to maybe 5th or 6th grade. And then everybody got really athletic and I wasn't athletic. So I was just around. And then I started playing a little football. But yeah, no, those are kind of my earliest basketball memories. Michael Jordan, AI. Obviously, I watched a shit ton of Allen Iverson. That was my guy. I might still have my jersey. I don't know if it'll fit now, but I had his jersey when I was little. That was my guy. Who else? Who else were my favorite players back then? I was a delusional Josh Smith fan. I used to think he was the best player in the fucking league, which was a bad idea. I was a huge Dwight Howard fan too. Dwight Howard was one of my favorite players. It was to the point where in every 2K that I was playing, I would use the Magic and I would kill with him because no one at the time knew how to stop the different post moves, and I knew how to turn every Dwight Howard post move into like a poster dunk, and people would get upset. So it was Dwight Howard time. There's a lot of different guys.
Yeah, we got to hop on 2K someday, man.
Hey, man, I'm watched. I don't even have a system, man. I was playing somebody at their crib the other day, and I had the Grizzlies, and the way we play, you random 3 times, and you got to pick one.
Yeah, that's how we do it.
So I hopped on the Grizzlies. So I was like, all right, cool. None of these other teams are doing it for me, and I like John Morant, and they got the Rockets, and I was like, all right, well, this should be competitive. And no, that person went ahead and got every point or assist with James Harden and Russell Westbrook. And it was pretty rough. And then we ran it back, and I had Philly, and I started to call him on his bullshit, and I started to double team him basically at half court. And he still won, but he only beat me by 5. So I say all that to say, if you try and pick up the sticks, you can get it too. But yeah, that's kind of how I started.
That's awesome, man.
That's awesome.
So, before we hit for the for the end, I wanted to cover a topic that a lot of people may not know about you. About your cooking,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I found out, and I still want to do this sometime with Chris, to do a episode where we record with camera, you showing us how to cook some of your favorite meals. So in addition to journalism, can you talk about your time as like being a chef as your side thing, like your side hustle, as Brian Fonseca would say?
For sure.
And have you serve up joy from the kitchen, and when did you first start to cook, and who were your influences?
For sure. So my mother cooked a whole lot, and my mother is half Filipino and half Black, and her mom is Filipino. So my grandmother used to do a lot of the cooking. And I unfortunately never got to meet my grandmother. She passed before I was born, but my mother got a lot of that joy from cooking from her. My earliest memory of making money cooking, and it wasn't even cooking. I was making these things called peach wobblers, and it was real simple. I was probably maybe like 10 years old, 12 years old. No, I couldn't have been 12. I was younger than that. It was after 2001, so that would have made me 9, at least 9. Maybe I was somewhere between 9 and like 12, in that area. And it was real simple. I was just taking some canned peaches. I would put some cinnamon on them. I would put some graham crackers on top of that, put whipped cream on top of that, and then some peanuts on top of that, some cinnamon on top of that. Boom, that's a peach wobbler. And I ended up just making those at this little fair. And that was the first time I made money of my own. I made $100 that day. And my brother said, wow. Can I borrow some money from you? I got it. But that was the first time I'd ever made money on my own, and I was like, okay, well, there's something to this, right? But I didn't pursue that at the time. A lot of people in my life at the time, they thought I should have gone to culinary school instead of going into journalism.
I mean, I've seen your Instagram, man. It's
yeah, no, I could do. I'm contemplating now. For the last 2 years, I've been trying to figure out a way to go to culinary school and be an NBA reporter. It can't happen, right? Because of the way you have to really dedicate time to be in culinary school, and the NBA does not stop, right? So at this point, it's like, all right, well, I'm not going to be able to go to culinary school now, maybe down the road. But to get back to your point, my mother used to fry fish. She used to cook a lot of this, but she would make fish every now and again. And her fish was good, but I was like, you know what? I'm watching you make it, and I think I could do something on my own. So I took that fish, and I kind of like remixed it, did it on my own. It was just fried fish. I add some extra Old Bay, add a couple extra seasonings in it, and then boom, my fish ended up being things that my family loves. And for me, and for a lot of us, we get gratification most in the things that bring other people gratification, right? The things that we do that can put smiles on other people's faces. I write because I know that when I do write, I like writing because I know that people tend to like the things that I write. And I want to leave them A, more informed, and B, I want you guys to have had a good experience reading something that I wrote. And it's similar with cooking, right? I want you to A, enjoy the food, and B, just have a good experience eating. And that's kind of where that passion came from. And then I went away to college, and, and when you go away to college, it's kind of like cutting the umbilical cord. So I'm always like, all right, well, you kind of got to figure it out. Freshman year, she was kind of holding it down. She kind of paid my way through there. But sophomore year, I wanted to move off campus. And she's like, oh, how you going to pay for rent? I'm not paying for your rent. I'm like, okay. So I got to figure it out. I ended up doing fish fries that sophomore year to kind of pay my rent. I was frying fish and frying French fries, and that, Virginia rent is not that much, but I needed an extra $650 in a month, and I wasn't getting it. So that was kind of what I did. I kind of fried some fish to pay that rent for a couple months, and then I got a regular job. But just being able to know money, like food, being able to cook food has always been a way to bring me a stream of income. And then you get into journalism, and you're like, damn, I'm only making XYZ amount of money. And it really hit me when I took the Elite Sports New York position. I was like, damn, I'm kind of broke. I need to find some ways to make money. I didn't really want to get a regular job. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't trying to get a job at American Eagle or something like that. Like I was like, nah, I'm not going to do that. So I started cooking again, just doing a little bit of catering here and there. You know what I'm saying? Nothing crazy. I'll cook some fish for parties. I'll make some wings if somebody needed them. And then 2 Septembers ago, not the one that just passed, but the one before that, I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's turn this into a business. I came up with the name Chris and Chips. Secured the LLC, and now here we are. I cater. I cook a lot of different things. I ended up getting really nasty at making brunch. Like my brunches are really ridiculous. So that was I got.
All right, I know what we're having then.
Yeah, no. If you need me to make, if I ever have to cook for people, I'm usually either making some type of seafood, some type of wings, or a brunch, or something, or some type of meal that is based around seafood and wings. Or I can make as many different sides as you want, but it's probably going to be some type of either fried seafood or some type of like salmon or a good fish or some type of wings that I've baked or fried and tossed in a nice little sauce. But the brunch, I got an opportunity. Someone has actually through Instagram is probably going to be one of the best networking tools you ever use. Someone just reached out to me and said, hey man, I've seen your cooking. I want you to come cook at this restaurant in the Bronx. We need a brunch. We need a breakfast chef. And it didn't really work out because they were kind of unorganized and they didn't really know what they wanted to do. And then they were trying to like pay me based on how many people that they got in the door, but they didn't get anyone in the door. And I wasn't trying to be driving back and forth to the Bronx for no money. But what they did do was they said, hey, we're going to cook. We need you to cook for Uber Eats. I don't know why they thought that Uber Eats was going to be good for breakfast. Like, I don't think anybody gets breakfast delivered like that. I might be wrong, but
I get lazy sometimes.
Yeah, possibly, but not consistently, right? I don't know how many people order breakfast every day of the week. But they asked me to cook one of everything that we had come up with on the menu. So I made some eggs. Obviously, I made I made some French toast. I made some chicken wings. I made some waffles. I made my home fries are really fucking good and they look good. And I made a bunch of different things. And then they had Uber Eats send their own photographer to take the pictures. And the pictures came out so dope that people started looking at them like, oh, can you cater brunch for me? Can you cater brunch for me? And that kind of became the takeoff point. People were just like, hey, we need somebody to make brunch. Last year, I did a brunch for my boy who was doing this thing called Limitless. He does these Limitless brunches where he just invites people and they dress up like it's the VU Polo Classic or whatever. But I made the brunch there, and I'm kind of just like, it's just been a way that A, keeps me in tap with another passion of mine, which is cooking, and B, has just been a way for me to consistently make money without really having to try. Like when you love something, you really don't put too much effort into it. It comes naturally, and I love cooking, so it just worked out for me that way.
Well, hopefully when the next time we have you on, we'll, like I said, pick some type of thing, maybe brunch, record, show Chris how to cook, and maybe I'll be able to contribute as well. And then, we'll show it to the world and keep that going.
Let's do it. Yeah.
I'm down.
So it's almost time to finish up. So I just want to transition to our final segment about the NBA today.
Sure.
So first off, we're going to talk about the Nets, then the Knicks. So I know the Nets have had a very interesting season, a lot different than what we anticipated. So what are your thoughts thus far?
Man, it is hard to win in this league. That's kind of my biggest takeaway. Is like, it was hard for the Nets to win a game with Kyrie. He went 4-7 once he got there. Then they get hot once he gets out. Once him and Karras go down, they get hot. Then they start losing again, right? They lose God knows how many in a row. They lose 7 in a row and then 8 out of 9. And then they avoid the 8-game losing streak yesterday by beating the Heat. This team has been able to do that. They've been able to stay afloat just by virtue of either Spencer Dinwiddie gets hot or their shooters are hitting shots, but they've found ways to win by defense, right? They've been able to hold it together that way. And the reason they've lost these recent games is because their offense was kind of trash, right? They weren't. Spencer Dinwiddie had that crazy stretch that he goes cold. Then Taurean Prince and Garrett Temple can't buy a bucket. And then you kind of cut Iman Shumpert and David Nwaba goes down. And now you've got Tim Luwawu-Cabarrot playing in those minutes. But obviously you wanted Shump or Nwaba, right? This team is light years better if they have one of those two guys on the roster right now, and they have neither. But I think that this team this season, it's in an interesting place because they're still in a transition period, right? Like Kyrie really hasn't played at all, except those 11 games. KD, we were under the impression that he's not going to play all season. And they're still kind of staying afloat. So credit to these guys who've been able to stay in the playoff. But I mean, even if they don't go, I mean, and it's tough. It's like, okay, well, if they don't sign Kyrie, like for me, my whole thought process about this season is comparing it to what could have been had they kept D'Angelo Russell and tried to build around him, right? Like if they keep D'Angelo Russell, go get Julius Randle, what happens then, right? If you've got a starting lineup of D'Angelo Russell, Joe Harris, Karis LeVert, Julius Randle, Jarrett Allen, that team is probably also good. That team is probably a lot better than last year's team, and it probably has a lot of the chemistry that last year's team has, but adding a guy like Randle into it makes that team even more fun and dynamic. Imagine putting D'Angelo Russell and Julius Randle on the same floor, running up and down the court. It'd be amazing. But when you change that and you bring in a guy like Kyrie, who's done it, he's done it on the biggest platform. He's won a championship, and Kevin Durant has won too. Right. This is what you have to do. You've got to go through these different lumps and of time to figure it out. And I think this year for them is just more so figuring out who fits into the overall picture of what they're going to do in the future. You know, Kevin Durant is going to play that 3, right? Or that 4. I'm not sure you put him at the 4, right? You probably have to put an actual 4 there. You put KD at the 3. You got a shooter at the 2. You got Kyrie at the 1, right? So who else is going to fit alongside them? I'm not sure what Taurean Prince's future looks like here, just off virtue of like, hey, can he be someone who plays alongside KD at that 4 spot? I'm not sure. And those are questions we're going to have to ask about a lot of the young guys. Is Joe Harris's future going to be here? Is Spencer Dinwiddie still going to be here? Probably. I think he has one more year in his contract and the player option on the year after that. I'm not sure how that's going to work out. Karis, how is that going to do? I think that's going to trade a lot of these guys to try to get another star. They're going to go after Bradley Beal. They're going to go after Nikola Vucevic. You don't know what they're going to try to do. So I think the Nets have a lot. It's been an interesting year just from a development standpoint, seeing Spencer take that next step, even though it sucks. He still might not be an all-star, which is ridiculous. But it's been fun watching them on the ride. But I think that this year, I don't want to call it an audition, but a lot of these guys are playing because we want to see how they're going to fit in the big picture alongside those 2 superstars.
Exactly.
And, we're going to see who's. I'm happy that Rhodey is starting to hit some. If Rhodey can consistently hit some threes, then this was the issue with Rondé. He couldn't hit threes, right? If Rondé could hit threes, he might still be a Brooklyn Net. If Rhodey hit 4 or 5 from 3, if Rhodey can consistently hit threes, he's that toughness that they need at the 4, right? I don't know if he's going to be a starting 4, but he's that type of tough enforcing type of guy that you need out there on a roster. And if he can hit threes, it makes him a lot more attractive. And then the younger guys, obviously, they need to step up. Theo Pinson, John and Musa. Those guys, obviously, they're not getting as much play time now as they were earlier in the season. But had one of them stepped up, right? Like if Musa ends up averaging 10 points and 5 assists off the bench on 45% shooting and 40% shooting from 3, he's getting minutes right now, right? But because he didn't, now he's kind of in the doghouse, so we don't know what his future is going to be like. And you kind of have to read into these things because this is what we are presented with. It's a matter of who is going to support KD and Kyrie for the next 2 years after this, because we don't even know what KD and Kyrie are going to do in year 4. They have player options. I don't know if KD turns down a $42 million option. I don't know if Kyrie turns it down. They might leave after 3 years, and the Nets are sitting on their thumbs. You never know what's going to happen. But I think for this year, it's just been, I've probably said it too many times now, it's just been identifying who looks best alongside those 2 guys. And we haven't even been able to see it because Kyrie hasn't even been playing. So hopefully he comes back soon. If not, it's just like a crash course in the Nets and learning what it's like to have superstars that are not homegrown.
Exactly. You hit it right on the nail there. And well, speaking of trades, let's talk about the other team. Let's talk about the New York Knickerbockers. Obviously, 10-29, 2 coaches. You got Andre Drummond in the mix. You got Kyle Kuzma in the mix. Give me your thoughts on the Knicks. What's going on? What do you expect heading forward? And kind of what would the Knicks do to end the season on a successful note in their eyes?
The Knicks are playing now how I hoped they would have played at the beginning of the year, right? Because if you had playoff expectations for the Knicks this year, you're delusional, right? My expectation for them this year was, okay, get as close to 30 wins as you can, because that's how you have to do it. It's not an overnight, okay, we're going to go from the worst record to a playoff record. No, that's not how it works. The Nets have kind of laid the foundation for how things like this do work, and so did the Clippers, and you can see the Thunder doing it in their own different way right now. You've kind of got to just chug along. You've got to eat dirt, and you've got to build slowly until you make it. And the Nets, they learned from the last time they tried to do it, and in a way, they gambled in not building around D'Angelo Russell and kind of jumping ship on that route and jumping to KD and Kyrie. That's kind of like going against the incremental progress that they've talked about this entire time. But the Knicks are a team right now where you don't like even me right now, I don't necessarily want them to blow up the season, right? I don't want them to blow up the roster because the roster is starting to find some continuity. They're starting to compete hard. They're starting to win games. And the Knicks don't necessarily have a good track record when it comes to developing their own players, right? Who's the last draft pick that you've seen in New York that actually panned out and that stayed there, that turned into a star in New York, right? I couldn't even tell you who it is. So this team, I think that the team that they have right now, I'm not going to say it's good, but they're growing together. You're starting to see them compete better. I want them to keep it together. Don't trade for. I mean, and if you do trade for Andre Drummond, you're doing so knowing that he's becoming a free agent. So maybe you're trading him because he's an expiring contract. But even still, he's expiring. Then what are you going to do? Just use that money to sign someone else who's not as good, right? I don't know what the thought process. Right. I don't know what the thought process is behind that. And what would you give up to get him, right? Are you going to give up? You better not give up Mitchell Robinson. You guys, instead of going to get Andre Drummond, why don't you just go to the G League and get that Kenny Wooten guy? That guy can jump out the gym, right? Why don't you guys just do that? I don't know. Knicks are in a crazy place right now, at least organizationally, going from Scott Perry and Steve Mills and then higher than that. I like Mike Miller. Is he the coach that they should have going forward? I'm not sold 100% yet, but this team has played 3 to 4 to maybe even 5 times better, maybe just giving 5 times more effort under Miller than they did under Fizdale. And, I think for them, the Knicks really need to hit the draft. You hope they get the number 1 pick. They need a point guard, right? The answer is not Dennis Smith Jr. They wanted it to be. It's not him. I like Elfrid Payton. I think he's a backup point guard in this league. He's not a starting point guard. And you need to go get that franchise point guard, right? RJ Barrett is coming along. He's not a point guard. He's not really NBA ready. He's not built for prime time just yet. That's going to take some time. I hope they don't rush him. They need a point guard who's ready to go and who's ready for that spotlight right now. It's probably going to be LaMelo Ball. They need to do what they can to get that pick. And that's where the Knicks fan base should be right now. They need a point guard. I think the Knicks understand this year how important that position is just to overall success. Just by watching Dennis Smith Jr. and Frank Ntilikina and Alonzo Trier go out there and try to run a team. No, you need someone who is actually a leader and who can be productive on there. And for the Knicks, until they address that position, this is going to be a continual conversation. So they need to handle that this offseason.
That's true. And Kristian, I got to ask you as well. Are you sold on LaMelo Ball?
I like LaMelo. I like him a lot. I think he can play. I think we're seeing what he can do against other pros. And take it or leave it, Luka Doncic was doing this over. I'm not comparing LaMelo to Luka by any stretch of the imagination, but but he did play against professionals before he got to the NBA, and now LaMelo was doing that, and he's playing pretty well. I still think Lonzo has some potential in it that hasn't been tapped into. I think it's not fair to him to really try to judge him until Zion gets back, because Zion is a guy. If you put Lonzo and Zion on the floor at the same time, that's highlight central. That's Sports Center top 10 every other night. So they're running up and down, getting each other the ball. I think LaMelo is built to be a point guard in this NBA. I think he's got the court vision. He can shoot the three. He can put it on the floor and get to the rack. And he's not selfish. He wants to get his teammates involved. Yes, I think he's the best prospect in the draft. But there's another guy that a lot of people are talking about, Cassius Winston. I think he's at Michigan State. I haven't really got a chance to check him out. I haven't really got a chance to.
He's a baller.
He's a what?
He's a baller.
He's
big time.
Yeah, I've heard my boy at SB Nation, Ricky O'Donnell. He does some dope stuff over there. Remember, he wrote a really good story on Cassius Winston, and then Rashad Phillips. He tapped in with him earlier into the season too. That's a guy that I've got on my radar. But if I had the number 1 pick and I'm the Knicks or any team that needs a point guard, I'm going LaMelo Ball every single time.
That's strong.
Well, man, last question for you. Who's coming out of the East? Who's coming out of the West? Who is winning it all?
Wow. Coming out of the West for me is going to be the Lakers. It's tough for me to bet against LeBron James when he's got this. And this is just, as long as everyone stays healthy, right? I think the Lakers have what it takes to beat the Clippers in the series. And I really think at this point, it's a 2-man race out West. Out East, it's not necessarily tough. I think it's going to be the Bucks, but it's more so who are the Bucks going to face in the Eastern Conference Finals, right? Are they going to face the Sixers? Are they going to face the Heat? Are they going to face the Celtics? Are they going to face the Raptors? Right? That run for that number 2 overall seed, and really who comes out of the East is going to boil down to what that matchup is. I really like the Heat. I think the Heat are really, really good. I just think they need one more piece. And every team, there's no perfect team really aside from the Lakers. Until you because if you think about it, Lakers have LeBron James at point guard, shooters all around, Anthony Davis, and 2 really good centers in Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee. Right, you really can't beat that if their shooters are hitting shots and LeBron is playing the game that LeBron plays, and Anthony Davis is one of the best players in the NBA, there's really no way to stop them, right? And then if you look out east, there's a lot of teams that have holes. There's a lot of imperfect teams other than the Lakers, and I guess you could say the Clippers are kind of perfect, but they kind of have that hole at the center. They can be taken advantage of at the center position. I think that you look at the Heat. Jimmy Butler has been great for them. Bam Adebayo. And what does it say for the Heat to have a better record than the Sixers team that Jimmy Butler left? Even though you could argue that the Sixers
got rid of too many shooters.
Yeah, they bet on the wrong guy. They gave Tobias Harris all that money. They really needed to keep Jimmy Butler, but I guess once Jimmy Butler leaves, there's nothing really you could do about it. It kind of sucks to see them in that position. And everybody's talking about the Sixers need to trade Embiid or trade Simmons. No, they need to trade Brett Brown. If they don't get it done, they need to find another head coach that can. Because I'm not sure that he might not be the guy for the job. Before you trade one of your two franchise pillars, you should try to get a new head coach. But I think every team out east, aside from the Bucks, they all have an area that they can be exposed in, right? And the Bucks are kind of the team that comes out of that. But they were supposed to be that team last year, and they lost to the Raptors. But there's no Kawhi now, so I think it'll be interesting to see that develop. I think in the finals, in the Eastern Conference Finals, we see the Bucks and the Heat. I think we're gonna see a Bucks Heat Eastern Conference Finals, and the Bucks come out of that, and then they lose to LeBron in the NBA Finals.
Thank you for sharing, man.
Thank you for sharing, man. And then Kristian, well, thanks again, man, for joining us, me and Doug. We really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to talk to Doug and I.
All right. Well.
Yeah. No. Thanks for having me, guys. It was pretty dope that you guys weren't necessarily just talking about basketball, which you wanted to know.
We care about our guests.
Yeah,
that's about you guys. That's what we do different.
Yeah, I appreciated that with you guys, man. Everybody should try to hop on this podcast because everybody has different gems that they can drop that might hit something I say might inspire somebody to get off the bed, put the video games down, and go and get it. Or somebody else says that comes on the podcast next might inspire the next guy to go and get it. I was watching The Shop yesterday. I was watching The Shop with a friend, and just that energy, just watching all those successful entertainers go back and forth and inadvertently drop gems about how they got to where they got. That motivated me, right? I got to work yesterday. Like, no, okay, I need to write the best game story I can. I need to have my notebook. I need to know. Like, as soon as I hang up on this, I'm about to go write a little. I might as well tell you, I'm gonna write about Rhodey. He went 4 or 5 from 3 yesterday. And we got to ask him a couple of questions about how his G League assignment, Kenny sent him to the G League, right? And he sent him to the G League, and he kind of said that was kind of where he reestablished his confidence and his happiness. And that's kind of where he kind of, I guess, started realizing that he has worth in this game. He just kind of has to trust himself. That's what I'm about to write now. And the only reason I'm really feeling that spark to write an additional story after I filled my quote, and I have a couple other stories I'm thinking about writing, it's because I watched The Shop and watched all those successful guys inadvertently drop gems about what got them to where they are now. So if I can do that for any of your readers or your listeners, then I've done a good job. So hopefully I was able to inspire somebody to get off their ass and go.
All it takes is one.
Facts. All it takes is one.
Exactly.
Well, thanks again. So, Chris, would you like to give the closing remarks?
Yes, sir. Remember, guys, feel free to email over any suggestions, questions, comments, or thoughts on any of our content by sending an email to wingspanpodcast@gmail.com. And do not forget... Yay!